Now your forecast first.
Sponsored by ESL Federal Credit Union.
Another gem of a day across the region, mostly clear skies. That continues throughout tonight, tomorrow, and we'll carry it into the work week. 57 degrees right now. Day planner shows we drop into the 30s. More sun, sunglasses worthy for the next several days. It's got to end sometime. That is my full forecast coming up.
From the team you can trust. This is News 8 at 6.
Good evening and welcome to this web edition of News 8 at 6. A 21-year-old woman is dead after a fire in Caledonia. That fire breaking out in a house on Caledonia Avon Road last night. That's where we find Jack Watson live tonight with details. Jack.
That's right, Maureen. This is where that fire happened. I want to give you a look at the home at this hour. Most of the damage occurred in the back of the home. You can see plenty of debris there on the ground. This happened on Saturday evening here in Caledonia. Neighbors around here say there was a scene for about 5 hours. Livingston County Sheriff Tom Doherty says today, quote, "We continue to work with the Livingston fire investigators on the cause of the fire. The fire took the life of a 21-year-old female named to be released tomorrow. By release, 2 of our deputies were treated on scene by EMS and signed off," end quote. That is the Livingston County Sheriff speaking there. Neighbors described for us the images they saw as the home went up in flames.
The house was totally engulfed in the back.
Sure was.
The flames must have been shooting up, I'd say, 20, 30 feet above the roof.
Easily.
They were coming out the back, and the whole back porch was engulfed, and it was coming over to this house here, and the wooden fence behind it was on fire.
We are still waiting on that release from the Livingston County Sheriff so we can identify the victim of this fire. We are also waiting on a potential cause of this fire here in Livingston County. Live in Caledonia, Jack Watson, News 8.
All right, Jack, thank you. Red Cross volunteers also responded to that fire. Tonight, the Red Cross says it is helping 7 adults and 2 children with temporary housing, food, and clothing. And it is also providing specially trained disaster mental health workers due to the emotional aspect of the tragedy. The 2 teens accused of intentionally setting a man on fire and killing him are scheduled to have their preliminary hearing tomorrow. The suspects, aged 16 and 14, are both charged with murder. Police say they killed 53-year-old Stephen Amenhauser. A grand jury met Friday. If it indicts the teens, this preliminary hearing scheduled for tomorrow will not take place. Stay with News 8 Monday for this developing story. That 1-year-old child involved in an attempted murder-suicide late Friday night remains in serious condition at Strong Hospital. But tonight, Rochester police say he is improving. The child was being held by his father when the father jumped from the top level of the South Avenue parking garage in downtown Rochester. The father, who was age 40, did not survive. Rochester police are still investigating the incident. Happening right now, members of Rochester's Asian American communities are holding a vigil honoring the victims of last week's mass shooting in Georgia. A suspect shot and killed 8 people at massage parlors in the Atlanta area. 6 of the victims were of Asian descent. The suspect, Robert Long, says his motive was not race-related, but the attack is the latest in a string of violence against Asian Americans across the U.S. In response, lawmakers are backing the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. That bill would strengthen the government's response to hate crimes. Today, New York Senator Chuck Schumer said the violence must end.
We mourn for the families of the 8 people who were lost in Atlanta. But we also, it breaks your heart to know when Asian Americans walk down the street that they're worried that they might be confronted with someone who's violent. This has to stop.
News 8 is covering the local response to the shooting, and we will be talking to local groups about that hate crime bill. We'll have that for you coming up tonight on News 8 at 11. In Rochester, 1 man is dead after a shooting on West Main Street. This happened around midnight at a house party. 26-year-old Stephen Joyner pronounced dead at the scene. Another victim is in critical condition at Strong Hospital. There's no word yet of any arrests. Now for our continuing coverage of COVID-19, pharmacies in New York State can now vaccinate people with comorbidities. That was handed down today in an order from Albany. Pharmacies could only vaccinate teachers and people aged 60 and older against COVID-19. You do have to show you are eligible by providing a doctor's note, medical information evidencing comorbidity, and signed certification. In Monroe County, meantime, 128 new cases of COVID-19 were reported today. The 7-day positivity rate is just under 2%. 133 people are hospitalized and 30 are in intensive care. The county did not report any new deaths today. The youth advocacy group Save Rochester handed out food boxes today, and organizers say this event almost didn't happen. A food vendor was unavailable at the last minute. Then a local restaurant stepped in. Benito's on East Avenue provided some essential donations to make sure the event was possible. Organizers say a year into the pandemic, it's great to see people are still willing to lend a hand.
State Rochester just asked for a hand and they reached out and we kind of just did it together. So it's an amazing thing to see people come out, have fun with the Easter Bunny and get some food to just spread joy during this pandemic.
Save Rochester says the need is great. They're now taking down people's information to make sure they're able to follow up with them and give them food donations in the future. Local doctors say the pandemic has led to an increase in calls for accidental exposure to things like hand sanitizer and household cleaning products. The majority of kids were able to stay home and get help from the Poison Center over the phone. Still, doctors say about 1 in 5 kids did have to take a trip to the ER. Dr. Elizabeth Murray with Golisano Children's Hospital says you should keep all medications in their original child-proof containers.
So when possible, limit your child's exposure to them seeing other people take medications while they're very young. Also keeping that medicine far out of reach, so out of sight, out of mind, out of reach. We want to make sure all cabinets that have cleaning supplies are locked as well. Now, as we start to being able to re-engage with family and friends and visit other households, making sure that those households are again ready to have young children around.
Dr. Murray says out of the 50,000 calls made to the Poison Center locally, about a third were for children under 5. The Poison Center is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the number is 1-800-222-1222. A car crash in Penfield today sent one person to the hospital and a dog to the vet. This happened on Harris and Sweets Corners Road in Penfield. An unidentified driver ran a stop sign and was hit by a pickup truck. The car flipped and then crashed into a house nearby. The 56-year-old driver was taken to the hospital. 2 dogs were in his car and one had to be taken to the vet for its injuries. The driver of the pickup truck suffered minor injuries. The driver of the car was ticketed for not stopping. Part of Elmwood Avenue was closed down in Rochester today after a motorcycle crash. Few details known, but at least one person was taken to the hospital. Rochester Police, Fire, and an ambulance were on scene. We have reached out to Rochester Police for information about this crash, and we'll bring that to you when we get it. The reopening of the Fairport Lift Bridge has been delayed again. The State Department of Transportation says supply chain issues have led to a delay in getting the necessary materials for the rehabilitation process. The reopening of the bridge is now slated for later this spring. Another beautiful day in Rochester. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than this, and it almost makes you forget about the winter weather we had really just days ago. We had icy, cold weather and snow for a long time, James.
Yeah, for sure. We can have these long stretches, these blocking patterns that give us winter weather for days on end, and then we switch. We are literally in a spring, near summer-like pattern with 60s over the next several days. We had 63 today in Rochester. Yes, there was a lake breeze along Lake Ontario. If you are in those areas right along the shoreline, you know what I'm talking about. Always a bit cooler there, but we are still cruising well above average for this time of year. I do want to talk about Lake Ontario for a minute here. Water levels are low, the lowest they've been in years. We had the flooding in 2017, 2019 flooded again This year, though, look at how low the water is in this picture. This is at Braddock's Bay. Al Schnabel sending us this picture, and it's barely even up to the docks at all. And the numbers are about half a foot below average. Currently 244.36 feet. I think that's since the 18th. So yeah, 8 inches below average. The forecast is for that number to go up as spring melt continues, especially across the Tug Hill Plateau, and then of course the spring rains as we get into April. But really, no flooding for sure. We could even be looking at lower water levels as we get into summer. Work week ahead, no issues. Monday, Tuesday, still warm, still very comfortable. Look at Thursday, maybe even a 70-degree mark somewhere in western New York. But otherwise, any rain chances Wednesday, maybe a shower or two. Friday, that's when we see a pattern change. Back to reality, more normal temperatures for the region. All right, your Monday starting off in the 30s. Will warm up quickly into the 40s, 50s, and yes, mid-60s I expect. This model putting Rochester at 69 degrees by the afternoon. We could see some pockets of some very warm air, but just the big takeaway is it's going to be very mild. The other takeaway, you see this little green strip, that is the lake breeze. That keeps our friends along Lake Ontario a little bit cooler. So the bus stop forecast, kind of the thing where you want to make sure your kid keeps their jacket with them if they have it as they walk out the door, because they're not going to want it for the return home. It's short sleeves for the kids as we get into the afternoon. The setup is just perfect for this kind of weather. High pressure off the coast that allows for warm air to funnel in. This low pressure helping as well. Look at the arrows that go around the L. See that? How it kind of scoops up the air out of the Gulf. That storm system, that rain, it's going to be focused off into the Great Lakes. We get a warm front out of it by Wednesday. That's going to give us even more warm air as we get into Thursday and Friday. That's why I mentioned we have that chance of seeing that 70-degree mark by Thursday. Pretty crazy. All right, this storm system on Friday, this one's going to impact western New York. You'll see it in the 8-day forecast. Lovely, 60s, comfortable, and we drop. There it is right there. Friday and into Saturday and Sunday, we'll expect some cooler air and back to normal as we get into next weekend. And then, of course, we're wrapping up March. No real flakes at all in this forecast here. And I think a lot of people out there enjoying this nice stretch, Maureen.
Yeah, it really does not get much better than this, James. Love it. All right, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for News 8 at 6 on the web. We will see you on Channel 8 tonight for News 8 at 11. Until then, have a good evening.
Follow News 8 wherever you are on RochesterFirst.com, Facebook, Twitter, and our apps for both news and weather.